talking about that midair collision in Washington, D.C. You see this map here underneath my feet on the ground. So let's bring in CBS News senior national security correspondent Charlie D'Agata. Charlie, you broke some news about the helicopter crew, what it was actually training for. As I look at this route here underneath my feet, I'm really wanting to know why they were in the sky.
I wish I could see that route. I want to see what you're referring to. However, what got our attention was when Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, during a very brief part of that briefing with the president, he mentioned something called the continuity of government mission. Okay, so we dug a little bit deeper into exactly what he was referring to. So the Black Hawk helicopter crews that were doing that, essentially it was an annual assessment. I know it's been called a training exercise. In theory, yes, it's to refresh what they've already learned. So this wasn't just, these aren't newcomers. One of the crew had 1,000 hours flight time. Another one had 500. Now, if you consider inside helicopters, which genuinely go up for about 20 minutes at a time, that's quite a lot of experience there. And what this continuity of government mission means is if there is a catastrophic event in the D.C. area and you need to move government officials out in a hurry, you need to have those Black Hawk pilots and crews ready to move. And as is always the case with the military, you deal with a real-life scenario. You know this. You put yourself in a situation where the conditions are what they would be. So is it a congested airport? Yes. Are you near a flight path? Yes. Are there commercial airlines coming in? Yes. Are you in the dark? Yes. And you have to push that sort of envelope of where they're understanding, and all of these assessments are taking place. And Reed, I want to go back a little bit further. This isn't something new. This has been enacted since I spoke to a Black Hawk pilot, interviewed him yesterday. He's been doing it since 2002, 2003 is when he started. It was in the wake of 9/11. So this is a routine training exercise, if you want to call it that, a routine assessment. It takes place every day. If you've been to the D.C. area, you see Black Hawk helicopters up and down the Potomac anytime, day or night, nearly constantly. So this is not anything unique. I heard you speak earlier about the ceiling. That's been come into question. It was over that 200-foot ceiling. We do know that that's a strict ceiling. That much we can confirm. You know, we spoke to folks here. It may have been considerably higher than that from open source material that you and I have both seen, maybe closer to 300 or 400 feet. So they will be looking at that. However, I've also been cautioned by Army officials and others who said, you got to be careful because there is going to be some fluctuation. It was windy that night, and I can attest to that because I went out to the Potomac as soon as this happened. Right. So there are different conditions and different sets within that assessment that may have caused that helicopter to have gone to an elevation or an altitude more than 200 feet. That's why it's all, you know, an Army officials that we spoke to today, they cautioned patience until the investigation at least is underway and reveals more.
Well, Charlie, we know D.C. is a runner city. As a runner, I've been out on the banks of this water. I've literally run the edges of this water that we've been showing you here on this map and then also in video. And anybody who does that run, they know if you're running along the Potomac River that you will see Black Hawk helicopters in these routines. Any thought that what is found out about the elevation or any other metric here could result in some changes in policy and those routines, Charlie?
Well, Reed, you know, in a way, it actually already has happened. So the Defense Secretary pressed pause on any of those operations, originally the operations involving Black Hawk crews, and he put a 48-hour pause on that. However, in recent hours, the FAA, which is the authority here, has actually gone a little bit further. They've actually indefinitely stopped any of these helicopters around specific paths around the airport itself, because there are certain corridors, as they call them, around the airport. The FAA has said, nah, that's not going to happen anymore, and that's indefinitely. So I think a lot of it will have to do with the investigation as it comes along, but because they haven't been able to determine exactly what happened, they have to press pause because they don't know, until they figure out what went wrong, they can't fix it. So as far as we're aware now, I'm almost certain that that extension will, or that 48-hour pause will be extended. The defense secretary essentially had suggested that when the pause was put in place. So the FAA is, is the ruling authority here, and indefinitely we won't see helicopters in those areas where this incident took place.
They're examining the skies, the routes, and also what is in the water. Charlie Daggett, thank you so much for that conversation.